Welcome to the Igniting Change podcast. My name is Duncan Cook, founder of Three-Sided Cube. We know the power that technology has to have a positive impact on people's lives. But on this podcast, myself and my co-host are out to meet the people behind the technology, hear their stories and understand what drives them, and hopefully inspire others to join the mission and do some good in the world.
Amazing. So Hazem, thank you so much for joining us on this awesome episode for Igniting Change. Did you want to introduce yourself? So tell us your name and the organization you're with and the role that you do.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Puff, for having me on. It's definitely a pleasure to be here and to have this conversation with you. I think there's a lot of excitement around AI and a lot of talk and hype around it, and I'm really excited to kind of dig deep into this conversation with you. But yeah, my name is Hazem Mahmoud. I'm the Director of Products and Services at the Patrick J McGovern Foundation. I lead a team of data scientists and engineers and designers where we work on developing and deploying data and AI products for the social good sector. So we have, like I said, a team that actually works on developing these products and not just developing it and kind of putting it out there for other folks to play around with, but we actually go through the effort of deploying it as well, which is a whole nother, challenge in and of itself. But the reason we do that is because we want to make these tools and these products available to the nonprofit sector for different use cases and so on.
And how on earth did you bag that role, Hazem? Like, that sounds amazing. I mean, these roles they're exciting, but they're really hard to do. So what were you doing before that gave you the skill set to be able to do this?
It's definitely been an interesting journey, Puff. I mean, so I've been in engineering for over 20 years now. I worked for various different sectors. I worked in the finance sector at first, did a little bit in the ad and marketing sector for a bit, and then moved into telecom. And then finally, around 2014, the data and AI hype was starting to build up, and I kind of wanted to be close to that. So I decided to join Cloudera, and when Cloudera went public in 2017, they decided to join the 1% Pledge, which is this idea of creating a nonprofit arm of the company. And so when they did that, obviously I heard about it. I was really excited about it. They're looking to hire engineers at the time, and so I decided to jump over into Cloudera Foundation, and that was kind of my first engagement in the nonprofit sector on a professional level. And so I worked as an engineer with Cloudera Foundation for several years. We built out various programs, one called the Deep Partnership Program, another one called the Accelerator Program, whereby we combined grant funding, technical expertise, like myself and other engineers that were with the foundation, as well as free Cloudera credits or licensing. And so combining those three together, we were able to, work with several nonprofit organizations to kind of advance their data journey and get them to where they need to be. And so after doing that for a few years, the opportunity came up where the Patrick J McGovern Foundation acquired Cloudera Foundation, which is a very rare thing in the sector. But it was an incredible experience to go through. It was a great team on both sides that helped make that happen. And so, yeah, joined PJMF, the Patrick J McGovern Foundation, back in 2021. So I've been with them now for 3 years. When I joined, I initially did the same type of work as far as managing the programs that we had developed at Cloudera Foundation. But then at some point in that, the president of the foundation and myself, Velastar, the president of the foundation, we decided to try something new. And we have one of our values at PJMF is let's try this, right? Let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens, right? And yeah, exactly. And so this novel idea, honestly, this idea of having a foundation build out an engineering team that develops AI products, it wasn't something that existed at the time. And we said, why don't we give it a shot? Let's see what happens, and let's see where this takes us. And so that's where I am now, I guess.
And I have to be honest, and for those listening, I am a massive fan of this, because this, to me, I mean, you guys are such a forward-thinking organization or foundation for being able to do something like this, because what I often find, and I'm generalizing here, but not for profits, they're typically quite risk averse,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to adopt. I know AI is not new technology, but it's still emerging. It's still evolving quite rapidly. So to do something
Yeah.
like that is exceptionally brave and bold, and I think really inspiring to other, not only foundations but not-for-profit organizations that are trying to understand what benefits and what advantages AI, machine learning, might be able to
Mm-hmm.
bring to their organizations. So I applaud this, and that's why I really was so keen to get you on, because it's quite rare. I don't know any other foundations that are doing this. Do you know of other foundations that are doing this?
I know there are other foundations that are starting to explore this idea. There are obviously a lot of nonprofit organizations that are working on, they have development teams in-house that are developing some incredible products. But as far as foundations are concerned, I know there's conversation that's happening around it. And one of the things that we're trying to do is really trying to demonstrate how to build out a responsible and safe AI development team in this type of context, right? And so um, that's kind of one of the things that's driving this forward. So it's not like we're coming in and thinking that we're going to solve all these problems necessarily with the products that we're developing. But we're trying to kind of pave the way and share our learnings with the rest of the sector to help others kind of do the same and kind of benefit from the resources that they have, honestly.
And how are you
Yeah.
sharing those learnings? So, like, for those listening that are
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I want to know what you've learned and follow the journey, how do they get
Right.
this?
So we do that through a number of ways. I mean, obviously there's the usual, blogs and posts and things like that that we do. You're, participating in these types of amazing conversations with yourself, Puff, as well is another method that we try to do, whether it's conferences or podcasts or otherwise. Um, but we also do, one of the things that we do within the products and services team within PGMF is this idea of, I guess, what you would call consultations, right? And so we make ourselves available on a regular basis, our data scientists, our engineers, and so on, to consult with other nonprofits and other philanthropies to really share some of that work, right? So they might be struggling with a specific type of issue or troubleshooting some performance issue with their solutions. We come in and kind of help drive some of those conversations forward and kind of get beyond some of those challenges. um, we've had numerous architecture and design type of conversations as well in those consultations, and honestly it's been an incredible, so we do product development, that's kind of the core of the work that we do, but when it comes to the consultations, the impact is even greater because we're able to then reach out to larger groups of people and share a lot of these learnings that we're kind of going through.
And how did people get these consultations with you?
Sorry. Yeah, these consultations are um, they happen honestly very organically. There isn't like a specific um, process that we follow right now. Although we are building out a process within the broader PGMF team to allow this to happen in a little bit more of a seamless way. But they could honestly just reach out to me on LinkedIn and we could start the conversation there. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything formal or anything like that. Typically, we'll do our first consultation is just an introductory consultation to better understand the needs and the challenges that the organization is going through. And then from there, we can have follow-up conversations with other folks from my team to understand how we can, benefit the work that they're doing.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, this is so exciting. So obviously your remit's to design and develop products, right? You're trying to learn and get the insights from doing this. In the time that you've had there, I think you've been there 3 years. There's been a couple of products that you can talk about.
Correct.
You want to share the love? Come on, tell us what products you've been designing and building.
Would love to. And honestly, just want to shout out to my team, because they're the ones who are really doing the hard work behind the scenes of making these products happen. But we've developed, I like to say, like 1.9 products right now, because we're about to release the second one. But yeah, the first product we developed is called Journal Pilot, which is focused in the journalism space. And the reason we chose the journalism space specifically is because of, well, many reasons, but one of the main ones is that the journalism sector, generally speaking, is a little bit more hesitant when it comes to AI. And, rightfully so, there's a lot of concern around kind of the voice of the journalist not being authentic, right? And things of that nature when using AI, for example. And so we wanted to demonstrate how you can responsibly and safely utilize AI within the journalism context. And so we decided to embark on this product called Journal Pilot. And the purpose of this product is really, it's very, very simple. A journalist who is looking to publish a story, or either they're about to publish a story, they've already published a story, they can go ahead and utilize Journal Pilot to put that story in there. And Journal Pilot will then spit out a bunch of social media related content that they can then, deploy to their social media networks. And so it's a way of kind of removing an element of their work that's kind of administrative, that they don't have to think about too much, to allow them to continue to do, the great work that they do in the journalism space. And so being able to engage with their social networks and supporting that type of engagement was kind of the purpose of why we developed Journal Pilot. And it was a fairly simple product from our perspective on a technical level, and that was also intentional. It was our first product, and we had to build out the ecosystem for developing products generally, right? And so there was a lot of work behind the scenes that we had to do to actually make that happen. And so we kind of opted to go with a simpler solution that we wanted to work on. The second product, however, this one's actually very interesting and very exciting to me. It's a lot more of a complex, I guess, idea as far as what it looks to accomplish. But when it comes to the second product is called Grant Guardian, and it's specifically targeted towards foundations and grant making organizations who are looking to perform financial risk assessments on nonprofit organizations that are applying for funding. And this is a common thing that every foundation does when a nonprofit organization is applying for grant funding. They'll go through the process of actually assessing the financial risk of that organization to understand if it makes sense to invest in them as a partner, right? Surprisingly, the grant making sector doesn't have kind of a streamlined way by which they do this. Every foundation kind of does it differently. Some use spreadsheets, some just do it very qualitatively, right? Just looking at financials and then just making a decision. And so we found that there was a need in the sector to kind of define the space and provide normalization or standardization around how to perform financial risk assessment for nonprofit organizations. So we developed Grant Guardian to do exactly that. So it allows a program analyst at a foundation to take these financial reports that an organization has given them, upload it to the product, and then we utilize large language models on the back end in order to then pull out all these financial values, and then go ahead and calculate all the necessary metrics and ratios, and then come up with a risk assessment report. And then the really cool thing about this is it's customizable for every foundation. So every foundation can, because everybody does risk assessment differently, they can decide which indicators they care about, what thresholds they want to set, and so on and so forth. And so it was definitely a lot more of a challenging product to work on. But we're hoping that when we actually launch this in a few weeks, actually we're about to release the beta release of this in a few weeks, that other foundations will find this beneficial for the work that they do. And again, really to define the space of how to perform these financial due diligence assessments in the sector. And again, just to reiterate, like all of our products, we utilize AI in some capacity within these products. So,
and so I think maybe this is an obvious or a given, but I'm assuming you have a very clear AI use policy or a framework in which you use to guide the decisions you're making in terms of what large language models you will be using and what have you.
we have a very informal policy right now, to be honest with you, Puff. Yeah.
But that's okay. So that's really interesting because
Yep.
we obviously we have a number of roundtables that happen, and I speak to so many people in this space.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. You've got some people that have very clear, defined use policies. You have some that are quite vague is the wrong word, but they're very junior and they will evolve, right? As everyone's experience evolves and gets stronger. Then you have some people that don't have any right now. And
Yep.
it like and everything in between. So it's interesting
Absolutely.
to hear where you guys are.
Yeah, no, it's actually through one of your roundtables. I recall that one of the individuals there that mentioned that they had an AI use policy, and I connected with them after actually to see if we can get a hold of that, and they did share it as well. And that's one of the things that I love about this space, honestly, Puff, as opposed to other sectors like the private sector and so on, is really this sense of collaboration, right? And the sense of working together to really advance the work. And I think that that's a critical element of the work that we do is all around the collaboration
And
to make this stuff happen.
I
Hmm.
totally agree. And that's something that is just so enchanting about this space. Everyone wants to help each other because they understand that this is for the greater good, right? They understand the
Yes.
impact that some of these activities and some of this work has the opportunity to achieve.
Right.
Coming back to Grant Guardian, so did you work with other I guess you would have had to speak to other foundations to get learnings and insights into their process of how they go about this stuff.
Mm. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we started off with our foundation internally because we have expertise on how at least we do it in-house, and so that's where we started. And honestly, that was one of the initial driving factors was we looked at how we were doing it internally, and we said, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do this. Um, and we use spreadsheets and stuff like that prior. But yes, as far as having conversations with other foundations, it was actually incredible because a lot of them were extremely interested in this. But then they started to share a lot of ideas of, oh, well, can AI do this for us as well? And can AI do that? And it was amazing because it allowed us to really feel like we're working together on a common project, right? To advance the work, all while utilizing something like a tool like AI, right? And so it was, yeah, had dozens of conversations with foundations that really helped shape a lot of the vision and the strategy behind Grant Guardian at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, we were trying to build something for the entire sector, not just for PGNF. And in order to do that, we needed to get input from other folks. And when we look at like things like learnings from the work that we do, that was one of our very first learnings in working with JournaPilot was the importance of partnerships and collaboration because we being my team specifically, we're engineers and data scientists. We're not subject matter experts in journalism or grant making or climate or whatever the case may be. And so again, this idea of how do you build out a team that's effective, an engineering team that's effective, one of the critical elements of that is partnerships and engaging with subject matter experts that can help build out these products in, again, a responsible and safe manner.
And you said it was 1.9, so Grant Guardians, you've got the final 10%. You can do it. You can get it done. What's the plan for beta? Do you trial it internally at the foundation yourselves before rolling it out to external? Like, do you have a wait list of people wanting to try this?
This is what I'm like breathing, eating everything these days right now, Puff, is exactly this whole testing of Grant Guardian. So yes, we are planning on releasing it internally to our strategic capital team that does this type of work. They've already been testing kind of like version 1.0 for a couple months, but this newer version that we're about to release, this beta version, they'll be testing that next week. They'll start testing that. And then we have a core group of about a dozen or so other foundations who are going to serve as our beta testers. And they've been, very generous in providing us with their time to help shape again the roadmap for this product, but also when it comes to testing. And so we'll be doing testing with them for about a month or so, all while working on the next feature sets for the GA release, which we're hoping will be sometime towards the end of the year.
So, I mean, this sounds like it's going to be successful. I mean, I don't know what your measure of success is for this, but just as a bystander, I would imagine your team are learning so much by doing and putting this together. But obviously, when you start to roll that out and you start to get real data on how people are using it, that roadmap, it's going to become more of a full-time job. So then, does that mean you
Absolutely.
grow your team? Like, what's the plan? Do you know the plan? I mean, I guess it's
Yeah.
you're involved. Like, it's a bit trial and error, right? You don't know. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there is a lot of one of the things that I've gotten very, very comfortable with in this role is well, two things specifically. One is change. Change is constantly happening. What we developed with Grant Guardian 6 months ago, we're having to go back and reassess and redesign because the technology has changed. And when I mean technology, I mean specifically, around AI. And so there is constant change, and we as a foundation have committed to that kind of change. So we move really, really quickly, and we make decisions quickly. The second part also that I've learned in this role is this idea of being uncomfortable with the unknown. Like we in many ways we don't know what's going to happen a year from now, or what areas we might be needing to work on, or what features we might want to add. But as far as growing the team, because that is something that I think about quite a bit, specifically because again, we don't just develop products, but we develop and deploy them. And when I say deploy them, that means that we're maintaining them, right? So people might be submitting bug reports, or they might be submitting feature requests, or there might be scalability issues that we have to take care of, or security issues. So there's a part of the team that has to start focusing at this point now on managing these production products, right? And then there's another part of the team that has to kind of be focused on continuing to develop new products. And so we're at that crossroads right now where we're like, okay, we can't be doing all of it at the same time. And so I'm starting to think about how I can structure the team in a way that's most effective in regards to maintaining these products like Journal Pilot, Grant Guardian, and so on, while at the same time committing to new products that we're producing as well. So yeah, definitely there is growth happening on the team. We're hiring for a backend engineer right now. We are also hiring for a DevOps engineer later this year. And then we'll likely be growing the team to continue to support again, the maintenance of these products.
And can you give us a sneak peek or any indication of another type of product that might be in your pipeline?
Yes, we can share a little bit about that. Well, the only thing I will share as of right now, because this is kind of what we've committed to, is that it will be a climate-based product. So we'll be focusing on climate as for our third product. And then we will also be focusing more. The first two products were kind of B2B type products, if you want to think about it that way. We're going to be focusing more on the consumer side of things with this product. So think of it probably something like a mobile app product that has a climate focus that empowers and enables people to do something to benefit climate sector. So that something is yet to be determined, and we're working right now on we're going through product ideation and discovery right now to nail that down.
And for those of you listening that want to know, watch this space. Obviously, we will be following this journey. It's really, really exciting and encouraging to hear. So the two products that we've spoken about, and you've shared some of the insights just around change and change being a constant, right? What are there any other challenges that you can share with us that you faced when developing these products?
Yeah, I think honestly, the biggest challenge is the one that I just mentioned about this idea that the technology is changing so fast that we are literally within the development cycle of a single product. We're having to go back and reintroduce, whether it's new models, retest those, maybe having to modify the infrastructure a bit to support that. So there's definitely, that's one of the biggest challenges, is being flexible and kind of nimble enough to be able to move like that. I would say the second challenge that we're facing is that we are operating in a space where, in many ways, we're defining the roadmap as we're kind of going through it. It's kind of like we're flying by the seat of our pants, if you want to think of it that way, right? This idea of we're not looking at an example of how somebody's done something like this and then following that. We're looking at many different examples of how nonprofit organizations have developed products, how the private sector has developed products, how government agencies have developed products, right? We're looking at all these different examples and trying to build out our own story of how does a foundation, right, develop products and then make those products freely available for the social good sector. And so that in and of itself is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, because we find ourselves taking or incorporating ideas or techniques or methodologies or frameworks from these different segments, only to realize, wait, this isn't going to work for us, right? And we have to then modify it a little bit. Now, we're not throwing away, these frameworks or these methodologies. We're incorporating them, but we're having to modify them for our needs. And so that is challenging in some ways, because you're making decisions about things that you don't know yet how the outcome is going to look like. And to give you just a very basic example, like when we developed Journal Pilot, we didn't have a designer on the team, and so it was basically designed by engineers, right? And that caused some issues in regards to things like usability of the product, right? And how the end user engages with it. And so we took those learnings, obviously, and we decided to hire a designer on the team, and now we have one that is able to then focus on those those issues and those types of challenges. Now, not to say that that's not like a novel, that's not like a novel idea by any means, but it is this idea of us trying to embark on this journey and having to pull in these different concepts from these different use cases that we see in front of us, and then having to modify it accordingly. And even with things like UX design, we're looking at how that's done in the field, but then we're having to modify it ourselves as well. So.
And I think there's an important part in there as well, just about running a lean team. I think it's always coming back to this, but to try and get stuff done quickly at the pace you need to get done, it's often much easier to do that by having a very small and nimble team. And quite often you don't know what you don't know. Like, you don't know that you're going to need something until you need it, and then you're like, oh, how do we get that and bring that person or resource in to be able to achieve what we need to achieve. And I think there's something magical when you're working with new technologies, new things that you're not sure about. Having a small and nimble and a lean team can often get you those insights and learnings very, very quickly. That being said, as you mature, that team need to scale up and mature as well, and you need to start bolstering on more niche or niche like people to be able to do the best possible job. But I definitely, I think I'm certainly seeing more of it now. These almost like experimental teams that are going off and experimenting and investing into this space so that they can get a much more thorough understanding of where the opportunity is for these organizations. And you hit on a point earlier about, tailoring the process. I think absolutely it needs tailoring for not-for-profit organizations. Certainly in my experience, what I find is you have a lot of for-profit organizations that offer amazing things to these not-for-profit organizations, but it's not always tailored, so it doesn't always fit nicely, or how it how it could have the best possible impact. And often that costs money and time, and there's lots of reasons why that happens. But I think tailoring it for the not-for-profits is so important, so important.
I love the fact that you brought this up, Puff, because this is, I think, one of the critical concepts that we've found in the work that we do. I mean, one of the things that we always talk about when we're having these conversations is that you can't expect the people who are developing AI products or just even technology products in general that are developing it for profit, that they're going to prioritize purpose, right? And so what ends up happening is you have a lot of these technology solutions, and even things like infrastructure, like cloud infrastructure and so on, that are really designed to prioritize profit. And what we're trying to do is we're coming into the space and saying, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But we need to prioritize purpose. And so how do we do things like build a team that prioritizes purpose? And again, this, kind of falls in line with this, let's try it value that we have at PJMF. So let's try this, right? Let's try to build out an engineering team that builds products around purpose and see what that looks like, right? And I think that's kind of one of it's an amazing opportunity, but it is also a challenge, right, in trying to do that. But yeah, that's one of the things that we really do, like to think about is how do we build out these products in an intentional way that addresses a specific purpose.
Yeah, I totally, oh my gosh, I can relate. So our mission at Three-Sided Cube is to change millions of lives for the better, and it's that purpose. That's the driving factor for all of our engineering team, all of our design, like all of the cubes. That's what drives us all, and I think it's a very different motivator to, when you compare that to other organizations that don't have a purpose led mission. Let's say it's designed around other things, and I'm not saying that's wrong, I'm saying it's just different. And I think you have to acknowledge that and understand that it drives decisions that are being made during the design and the development process. And it's so important that you have people that are motivated and driven by the purpose, by what you're, by your mission, by what you're trying to achieve. So it's so awesome and refreshing to hear that you guys are doing that, and you're, it's so, I know it may not feel like it, but it's very well thought out and thought through. It does, and I get it. Like in sometimes with us, sometimes it does feel a bit like, oh, flying by the seat of our pants. We're learning. We too are experimenting in this space and learning ourselves. I think for us, there are two sides. There are how it can impact and help our clients and the service offering that we have, but also how we work internally as a team and the tools that we use, and the considerations that we have, like that's changing at the same time as that. And you mentioned earlier the pace in which this is all happening is like unprecedented. Like it just feels so fast and so constant. And well, the only constant is change, right? That's what we know. So you kind of get used to it, but it can feel quite overwhelming, I think, at times. And I love, I am not an engineer, and I'm not pretending I am one, but I can feel out of the loop sometimes. So for the people in not-for-profit organizations that aren't engineers themselves, I can only imagine how they feel, and it can be extremely daunting, but it doesn't have
Absolutely.
to be. I think we just need to encourage more conversations around this and show people that, for me, it's not, this should enable amazing things to happen, but ultimately we don't want to be letting this drive solutions. We want to understand what real problems people are facing, and understand
Yep.
how what the solution might be, and how technology, let's say AI, might be able to deliver that or enable that. I don't know if I'm using the right words there, but
Absolutely, Puff. And I think just to build on that, one of the things that Vilas Dar, the president of PGMF, says a lot is this idea that nonprofits are proximate to the problems, but they're not proximate to the solutions, right? And so it's this idea of proximity, right? The idea that people who are closest to these challenges are the best representatives when it comes to like co-designing these solutions, right? And so, developing technology and digital solutions, again, are, typically they're not proximate. The companies that are developing these things, right? The major tech companies that are developing these products and solutions, they're not necessarily proximate to these problems, right? That they're developing these solutions for. And so what ends up happening is you'll take solutions like those, a nonprofit organization, and they'll try to retrofit it, right, to their use case. But at the end of the day, if you are looking to have the most impact and trying to be as effective as possible with addressing the specific need of a local community, then these solutions need to be developed or co-developed with those communities, in a way to actually have impact on their lives.
that 1,000,000%, absolutely. And it just builds on your point from earlier. It's about partnerships and collaboration. We can't do, like, let's say your team can't do it without these teams that are really close to the problems and the challenges that you're trying to face. So you have to work so closely together to be able to deliver a solution that will be considered successful, right? And success can be defined in many different ways. The measure of success
Hmm.
for each project is going to vary massively, but I think, yeah, I mean, I'm just fangirling and like, yes, I agree. I think it's so awesome to hear this, and I'm honestly, I've been in this space for so many years, and it sometimes, being really honest, it can feel really disheartening and frustrating that
Yeah.
progress isn't being made quick enough. But you guys, the work that your team, the foundation are doing is honestly so inspiring. And for anyone listening, please go away and look at Hazem on LinkedIn, and connect, and pick his brains. But it is so important, the work that you're doing. So talk to me, are there any other examples of tech for good that have inspired your team,
Mm.
that you want to shine a light on today?
Honestly, there are so many examples, Puff, and that's the beautiful thing about working, in the space that we're working in right now, is what we are actually doing within the product and services team is, I'll be honest with you, is nothing compared to like what some of our partners are doing out there in the field. I'll give you one example of, one of the organizations that we partnered with. They're called Civic Data Lab. They're based out of India, and they're using data and AI, to deal with flood mitigation and flood management, in specific regions in India, which is a huge problem. It causes, and it's an annual thing, right? And huge amounts of, loss of human life, loss of vegetation, loss of agriculture and livestock and so on. And so they're doing things where they're like, combining weather data, combining historical flooding data, combining data from government agencies that are putting resources into communities to see if those resources are impactful or not, or to see if there is potentially any type of bias in those
Yeah.
resources, right? Are they going to only, communities that are more affluent, or so on? And so they're honestly a shining example of how you can take all these different data sources, put them together, and use something like AI to then provide recommendations back into, the government system to say, okay, we need to put more resources into these regions and so on. So they've done some amazing work there. Another great example is Amrita University, also based out of India. They're doing pancreatic cancer detection through ultrasounds. So, typically a doctor will put an ultrasound. It's it's kind of like a probe that goes inside, and as they're going through the tract, they're trying to detect if there's any type of cancer cells in there. And so they're actually utilizing AI, or they're in the process now of training these AI models to automatically detect pancreatic cancer through these ultrasounds. So they also have another project where they're working on congenital heart disease for children. They're actually building out a simulation model using 3D printers and so on to allow doctors to literally print out a model of a child's heart to see what they need to do during the surgery in order to address the challenges that the child is facing. And so they're doing some amazing work when it comes to utilizing these AI models that they're training in-house to do this. There are other organizations working in disaster relief that we work with, that we partner with, like Team Rubicon or the American Red Cross, for example. So the American Red Cross, just as an example, they during the Maui fires, we partnered with them to support them in building out geospatial intelligence from these satellites to give real-time damage and response and hence resource allocation. And so there's been quite a bit of work there. Also, when it comes to hurricanes, through the funding that we've been able to give them, they've been able to take what would typically take 3 to 6 months for a family to get a check from FEMA to rebuild their home. They're now able to cut it down to 3 to 6 weeks. And so can you imagine, just put it on a personal level, right? Imagine you're in a hurricane, stricken area, and you're waiting 3 to 6 months to get funding to rebuild your home. Now all of a sudden it's 3 to 6 weeks. And again, that's using, data and AI to actually make this happen. And so there's so much benefit to using this technology that we need to engage with it. We just need to make sure that we're doing it again in a safe and responsible way. And I think that I think working together, PGMF and all these other foundations, as well as all these other nonprofit organizations, working together in collaboration, we should be able to address and solve these problems. And it's only through collaboration that we can do this, because everybody brings something to the table. And honestly, even the private sector, right? They're bringing technology to the table that wasn't available to our sector previously. And so we need to have a seat at their table as well. And so only through these partnerships, only through these collaborations are we able to address some of humanity's biggest challenges, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it's so important that we have these conversations like we are having today, that we shine a light on these examples, because quite often what I find, especially, so I'm gonna share, I'm working on a report at the moment as part of Arise in basically the use of AI in DRR, so disaster risk reduction. And we're looking at case studies of some of the applications, and we're working with the likes of NASA. Absolutely amazing. I'm really excited. Hopefully this report will be out soon. But
very cool.
A lot of the examples cited, they're all very academic, and they're great examples, but I don't know. I mean, sometimes they can be really hard to read and to actually understand. And I almost kind of want to translate them into layman's terms to be like, hey, this is literally, it was this is what it achieved. And I think that's what's inspiring, like making people aware of these like experiments that have happened and are producing really great results, because I think only then will we see the not-for-profit sector, I say taking more risk, but having you leaning on this kind of technology to be able to help them more. Because certainly in my experience, what tends to happen is, when people are trying to put together a business case for putting something together so they can get funding for, quite often they're like, has it been done before? Give me an example. Let me see where it's done. And where these, where we're starting to do stuff that hasn't been done or been done in different ways, it's much, much harder to be able to write a business case and to secure those donor dollars or grant dollars to be able to get these projects off the ground. So the more we can share these amazing case studies, the more that we can be talking about them, I think the better we will start to see more movement and more uptake and more interest is probably the wrong word. I think the interest is there, but actually getting people to do is much harder. And there's lots of different reasons for that, right? Budget, expertise in-house, confidence, the risk appetite, there's lots of different reasons. But oh my gosh,
absolutely. No, but I think you're right. I mean, it's something that also touches on what you mentioned earlier, this idea of being risk averse. It's something that in our sector has always been a problem, but it is amazing to see a lot of organizations now that are kind of, breaking the ceiling when it comes to, this idea of risk and this idea of let's try it and let's see what happens. And I think there is support now in the community for those who are willing to take those kinds of risks, and we need to support each other to take those risks. But yeah, that
comes back to one of your values. Try it.
Let's try it.
Let's try it. So, for those of you listening, if you are thinking about or about to embark on a project like this, let's try it. Let's see what we learn. Let's just try it.